Hey everybody, I'm live again. Angus Donald's Broken Kingdom episode 4, Arthur's Folly. I get Arthur and author mixed up a lot. Is out. I read it. It took me only a couple days to do so, and I finished it. Actually, I finished it yesterday. Is that right? I finished it yesterday. Got the review out today. So we're a little early. Usually I go on Sunday nights, but I figured we'd get this. We'd go ahead and knock this out. Yeah, lots of things to say. So first of all, let's get to the opening. My name is Cody Siangdal. I am the author of 5 novels, soon to be 6, and well, I wouldn't say soon. Probably early next year. The 6th book is coming out, and I use this channel to talk about my journey. I don't claim to be an expert in anything, but I am somebody who's got some experience in writing and publishing and marketing books. So I like to share that journey with you, my beautiful followers. You may be an author yourself, or you may be a reader. Everybody's welcomed here. So let's get right into it. So I was very interested in this concept the moment that Angus Donald announced it, and I already liked him. He wrote a series about Robin Hood, and I read the first 2, and I gotta say, especially the first one is one of my favorite versions of Robin Hood, and I found him, and this is a great example of who's some famous writer said this, something about don't worry about people reading your stuff for free, because they didn't not buy your book because they read it for free, because they could read it for free. And a lot of times discovering somebody at the library will lead into that person becoming a lifelong reader. So that's how I discovered Angus Donald. I think the first Robin Hood book was available as an ebook at the Nashville Public Library, and I read it and I loved it. And they only had that one, so I had to ask the library to get the second one. But I've since gone on to buy books from Amazon written by Angus Donald because I like his writing quite a bit. And I've read the first 2. I've read the first 2 of his Robin Hood series, and I read one. I forgot the name of it, but it takes place in and around the English Civil War, like in the 1600s. I'm sorry, is that right? 1600s. It's been a while since I read it, so I can't remember the title. But anyway, I like his writing. I like him. We follow each other on various social media. He's very kind to me. He shares a lot of my stuff. I share a lot of his stuff. And but what got me interested in this novel or in this book is that so Angus is published through like a regular traditional commercial publisher. And in fact, I think he's published through Canelo, which a lot of good writers are, especially in historical fiction genre. And but he decided to do something on his own. So while he's writing novels, in between the novels he writes for his commercial publisher, he's also writing these King Arthur novels, and he's publishing them independently, kind of the same way that I do. But what's different is I wait till I write the entire book and then put the book out. And I have a series that I've been working on, and I'm writing book 6. And you won't see any of that until I'm completely done and I've edited the whole thing and I've handed it off to my editors, who will also go through it and we'll get everything polished and fixed, and hopefully that comes out next winter or early next year, 2025. But what Donald is doing is he's breaking up the novels into the first novel is in 5 episodes. So each episode is 20,000 words, 6 chapters, and you can only get it as an ebook right now. So and I think in the UK it's 99 pence, and And I believe that's right. I think you have a pound is like the unit of exchange there, and then a pound is divided up into 99 pence. I don't think it was always that way, though. I think at some point they had a different system, and I won't get into that because I don't even know what I'm talking about. But I think it was divided up differently than by 100. But it is, I think, 100 now. 100 pence makes a pound. Okay, but I digress. And so you can get it for 99 pence there, or a buck 24, basically a buck and a quarter in the United States, because a pound is worth more than a dollar. And so that's why there's a discrepancy there in the price. I can't do math, so I just, when I do things on special, they're either 99 cents or 99 pence. So anyway, so he's releasing the episodes out, and one by one, so you can read the book as he's writing it, basically, which I think is really interesting. The only thing I would say about that would kind of scare me is because I thought, like, what a great idea, and I wondered why he didn't use Vela. Is it what that's what it's called? That's a program through KDP Amazon in which you can do a serialized narrative, but looking into it, I can't remember why, but I ultimately decided I didn't like it. But Donald is doing that, but just not using their program. He's just doing it on his own. And then I believe that once episode 5 comes out, book 1 will be complete, and then he'll probably put that out as a book, and then you'll be able to buy it not only in the ebook form, but you'll probably be able to get a print version of it, probably hardcover and soft cover, and who knows, maybe an audiobook as well. Now that Amazon or KDP offers audio, what do we call it? Artificial intelligence audiobooks. My books are all available that way. My understanding from the people who have bought those and listened to them, that they sound just fine. I know there's a lot of argument back and forth about, like putting real voice actors out of work and everything like that. I regret that, but I also think that you just can't, you can't hold back the tide. That there are certain things, there are certain jobs that people used to have that no longer exist anymore. Like, you don't have people pumping your gas. You don't have people operating the elevator for you. I still think there's going to be a place for voice actors, but I think that the ability to cheaply have a book recorded in audio form is helping a lot. I've had, I have a reader who is blind who had been waiting for me to get my books on audio forever, and I was never going to be able to afford to do it because it would cost me like $5,000 a book. But anyway, I've gone too far. I do that all the time. Let's get down to business. Let's get right into the. Well, first of all, let's do this. I'm going to show you. The book. So this is the book that we're talking about today. So this is The Broken Kingdom, episode 4, Arthur's Folly, Wormkind Chronicles, book 4. That's kind of confusing because The Broken Kingdom is going to be book 1, but this is Amazon trying to make sense of what Angus is doing. It is the 4th. Let's see. Do they have? Yeah, it's the 4th of this. It's the 4th episode. Like I said, it's going to make up book 1. So you have so just so you know, if you were like, hey, this sounds like a good idea, I'd like to jump in on this. If you haven't, you need to read the first 3. So if you want to read this, I would say download or buy all 4 of these. And I don't know when 5 is going to come out, but I suspect that once 5 comes out, you'll probably be able to just buy the book and not the episodes. Or you won't have to buy the episodes. I don't know if the episodes will still be available at that time. That'll be interesting. I would love to talk to him someday, just to see what the plan is and how well it's working. My review is not up yet. I did give it 5 stars, and that is already factored in here. My review is being reviewed, and then once it's reviewed, it will be made available for everybody to see. But I do have it over here, and I'll tell you one of the things I do. Let's see, what am I trying to do? Okay, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna pull up my review. Share screen. All right, there we go. Share. Bam. Okay, great. So the way I do this is I read the books, and then I write a review, and I write a review. I put it in Goodreads. I put it on Amazon, the actual product page for Amazon. That's where the author needs it the most. Goodreads and on Amazon. And then what I used to share the Goodreads version of it, because the Goodreads version is easier to share on social media. And then I came to the realization, it's like, why am I directing people to Goodreads? I mean, you can't even buy the book from Goodreads. So it's not like I'm benefiting the author at all by doing that. So I might as well direct people to my own blog, where I can put a direct link to buy that author's book, and also build my own traffic, build my own page, my own WordPress account, and even put a little bit of an ad for my own book. So let's take a look at this. So when you find that link, because I'm sharing it on all my social media, you'll click on it and you'll get this page here, and you'll get this wonderfully handsome man right there. Look at that guy. Like he means business, man. He is not screwing around. So anyway, this turned out great too. I always, if you notice my thumbnail for this video, I always, when I do a book review, I use, like, there's a picture of me holding an umbrella, and there's a stool, and my fiddle is sitting on top of it, because I'm trying to keep the rain off my fiddle. But I use it for these review videos because I think it's kind of funny. So I just put the cover of the book on top of it. So it's like me holding an umbrella, protecting the book that I'm reviewing. So here is the and this turned out really well. I then used that cover as the picture for the review, and sometimes it doesn't center right, like, because it cuts off, because the aspect ratio is not the same. But look at that, episode 4, Arthur's Folly. Okay, I'm going to read this for you. Book review of The Broken Kingdom, episode 4, Arthur's Folly, by Angus Donald. An exciting penultimate episode to the Broken Kingdom novel. I can't wait for the finale. And notice this. See, I made that a hyperlink. So if you click that link, it'll take you to the Amazon page where you can buy it. Angus Donald is not only taking us on an action-packed adventure that mixes historical and fantastical elements, but he's also presenting it in a novel way, which is why I was so interested in reading it. And this is where I break it down. The Wormkind Chronicles promises to be a series of fantasy novels about King Arthur in post-Roman Britain. But instead of releasing it book by book, Donald is releasing it digitally, episode by episode. This is much like the old serials written and printed in newspapers and magazines, like Dumas' Musketeer series or Johnson Macaulay's The Curse of Capistrano, where we first meet Zorro. By the way, I am having terrible allergies, and my tongue is swollen up. In fact, it's sore on the outer edges because it's constantly rubbing up against my teeth. And that's why I'm over enunciating things, because my tongue is in the way, and it's hard for me to pronounce some words right now. So I have to take good care, because I want to be a good broadcaster here. All right. Each episode is 6 chapters, or about 20,000 words, and goes for 99 pence in the UK or $1.24 in the US. The Broken Kingdom will have 5 episodes in total. Arthur's Folly is episode 4, and quite a banger. you do need to read the first 3 episodes before this one. I will remain spoiler-free in this review, especially since this episode starts deep in the narrative. I can say, however, that it begins and ends on action, and I really like that. I think that's very important. I try to do the same, not always, because it doesn't always make sense, but I always try to every chapter have something exciting happening. Of course, I don't spend a lot of time. I try not to be dull, and so I like that. A book I think should, especially in this genre, this action adventure, historical. I would call this historical fantasy what he's writing because there are dragons and mystical creatures, but it starts with a bang, and I think it's important to do it with books, but I think it's also, and this is what I think is really interesting, is that he's not only just thinking about the structure of a novel, but he has to make every episode exciting too. And so, and I think it takes a lot of discipline and planning to make sure that happens. And so far, he's done a great job with this, so that every episode you read has its own kind of arc and its own structure. And typically, I can't remember if he does this every single time, but start off with something exciting, then do some narrative building, and then have its own little climax. So I think he does a great job of this. I will say that it's a little bit challenging to write a review that isn't full of spoilers, because I am not reviewing a book. I'm reviewing an episode that's in the interior of the book. See what I'm saying? But I think I do a pretty good job here of not spoiling anything, but still giving you some meat to ponder about when you decide whether to read this. And like I said, if you hear this review or you read my review and you're like, you know what, I think I want to read this. Please do, but make sure you go and do episode 1. And I have, if you look through my videos or my blog post, I have reviews for the first 3 as well. Okay, so we open with a battle, which Donald set up in the previous episode. Donald writes very visual battle scenes that'll put you in the center of the action and present real stakes for the characters you care about. Even though it's decisive, there's definitely a to be continued element at the conclusion. When we get, we then get an update on his half sister Morgan and her magical training with Merlin. They can transmit their consciousnesses into animals far away and witness things as they happen, or that can happen if they allow it. I really like how Donald portrays this. When Morgan occupies the mind of a horse, I felt I was there too, feeling, and then I pulled this from the book. The impact of her small unshod hooves vibrate through her bones with each strike on the firm turf. Great stuff, man. I like people who are able to convey feelings and tactile and the senses, and it's that brings you there where you can see, taste, feel, touch the things. It just brings the narrative alive. It put me there in the fields of England running like a horse, and I felt like a horse reading that. It was great. Morgan sees her brothers in danger and must find a way to warn him. We also see more and more evidence that Morgan isn't quite human. And this is something that Donald's been building since the prologue in episode 1. We catch up with Arthur, who is traversing a web of deceit from some while forming bonds of trust and loyalty with others, as several of the storylines start to converge. And that is a really neat thing, because there are, as you read through the episodes, there are some storylines that seem detached that are slowly melding into this one story. We get an exciting and somewhat tragic duel to cap off the episode. Arthur becomes closer to the legend we know him as, but as he overcomes his human opponents, a larger, more sinister threat draws near: the worm kind. The soothsayer has woken the dragon, and from its foul form other creatures are born, like the sallow unicorns, the wolf-like wolfpeens, and other ghastly things. If Britain is to survive, she must put aside her petty power struggles and unite under the one king legends have called for. Can't wait for the conclusion in episode 5. Hopefully, it's coming out soon before the dragon gets me. And then what I did is I put in this is what I like about this is one of the reasons why I decided to start sharing a WordPress article instead of my Goodreads review, because I can do this. I can get the link and then create an on the page review. So look at this. You can preview some of his book and you can read through it and decide, hey, that looks great. I think I want to read more of that. I want to buy it. And see, we just went through the preview. And so if you wanted to, you could click buy on Amazon and bam, you're off to the races. But like I said, and I can't say this enough, this is not something where you can just jump into the middle. Like, like I try to write all my novels, even though they tell an overall story, I write each novel as if you have not read anything before. So you can do that with my books. You cannot do this with the episodes because the episodes are all going to be contained in one novel. So if you bought episode 4 and started reading it, it'd be like taking a novel and opening it up to a page more than halfway through and starting to read and trying to understand who's who and what they're doing and why. So because of that, I also added a preview to the first episode here. So, and all right, but make sure you start with episode 1. If you haven't read it already, here's the preview for that. And then, of course, the other reason why I use my WordPress article instead of the Goodreads is because I'm also plugging myself here. And once you've read all those, check out my latest novel. And once again, look at this. We can, there is a, without leaving the page, you can read. Unfortunately, my novels usually start with a preface that you can skip, but I feel like there's a lot of information I think that may be helpful to people, but it's not necessary. Dedication, epithets, and then we get into the book here, The Little Prince. So, and I still think there's plenty of room. I think you can read all the way through chapter 1, chapter 2, and yeah, you can read the first 2 chapters as well, and you can buy it straight from there. So that's it right there. Let's switch over to, let's come back over here, and I'm going to remove that, but I will put this back up here. Stop sharing and then present, share screen, and here we go. Yeah. Just to have something to look at other than my ugly face. So I will tell you one thing I did do. So I was very interested. Like I said, to be honest with you, I probably wouldn't have read this if it was just like, hey, I got a book about King Arthur, because I've read, I love the Arthurian legends, and I've seen a lot of different versions of it. So I don't know if I would have been interested in it on its own. I was more interested in the format and how he was doing it from an academic point of view. As an author myself and a book promoter myself. But I will say that once I started reading it, even from the first episode, I was locked in. So I love it. So I think I think I was delightfully surprised. I mean, I wasn't surprised. I already like his writing, so I'm hooked in. But it was more about the experiment of putting these out as episodes that I was interested in and considered for a minute for myself. And maybe it's something I might do at some point. I don't have any immediate plans. Certainly the book I'm writing right now, I don't want to. I want to finish it, then work it out some more. There's things that are coming up as I'm writing that I'm going back into the narrative and and trying to set it up better so that it makes sense when it happens and things like that. And so I feel like you have to be very disciplined, and you have to be uh, you have to be very consistent, and like, this is how it's going to be, because once you put that out, there's no changing it. So he can't start writing chapter 5 and realize, oh, I should put in a character that's going to make this make more sense, and go back and insert that character earlier on, because it's I'll give you an example. I had Carl in the book I'm reading now, The French Fiasco. He injures his foot, and I had written that scene where he injures his foot, and then later on I decided that I wanted that to become a plot point. I wanted to make that more important with what was happening later on, and that it would get infected and it would cause him to become feverish and delirious. And so when I realized that, I kind of had an idea that I wanted to do that when I first wrote that scene where he injures his foot. But then when I decided to make that a plot point, I went back in and I found little places to not only mention it, but to have it grow and get worse and worse and worse, and be a bigger and bigger problem for him as it goes on. So you're kind of locked into that. The other thing is, and I think my one complaint is, but I kind of figured out that's probably more my fault than his, is that we're getting these. I was not only was I interested as like a writer to see how this works, but even as a reader, because I do like that kind of the wanting to anticipation of reading the next one, getting the next, or what happens next. That's what makes serials so much fun. That's why we watch things like Game of Thrones, and things like that, because you watch it and you watch an episode and you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? And then you got to wait till the next week. But the one difference I will say, like for example, Laura and I are watching Shogun, and even though I think the whole season is available now, the whole show, we're not able to watch the whole thing through at once. So every time we start a new episode, they have a previously on Shogun, and then so it'll just show you all the little things that have happened, so that to remind you, like, oh yeah, okay, that guy, he wants this, and that woman, she's mad because of this, and so that when you watch the episode, it freshens, because in most scenarios, or traditionally, like a show like that comes out weekly, you've watched an episode, it left on a cliffhanger, and then you come back to it a week later, and you've watched a lot of things, you've read things, and you're like, wait a minute, what's going on now? So I always felt like the episodes, if they're going to be episodes, you need to have some kind of like previously on the Wormkind Chronicles or the Broken Kingdom. But I think that's also probably maybe clunky and not always easy to do. And so I always felt like these episodes needed that, because for me, what happens is they come out every few months, I think. I can't remember what the pace is. I'll have to look that up. But I'll read one of his episodes and I'll really like it, and then it's done, and I'm waiting for the next one to come out, and I'll read a couple books in between. So by the time I come back, he's got another episode out. I've read several novels, and I've read a lot of novels that have sword and shield kind of stuff. Like I'm reading Stephen A. McKay's The Heathen Hordes. So when episode 5 comes out, I'll have all these stories that I've read since, and it's hard for me, and mostly because I'm not very smart, to come back to this kind of cold after some time has gone by and I've cluttered my head with other things, and be like, wait a minute, who's this person again? What's going on? And so when I got 4, I started reading it, and like I said, it starts with a battle, starts with a bang. It's a great battle scene, and I recognize the character that is portrayed in this battle. And I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember what was going on there, because this novel has several narratives, several characters that are having their own part. Their threads are slowly, converging into one narrative. And so this character had been in the setup for the battle, had been in the previous episode, but I've forgotten about it. And so I read that first chapter and I was like, okay, he didn't put in a previously on the Broken Kingdom. And so I decided, instead of being, fat and lazy and expecting everybody else to do the work for me, I pulled out the first 3 episodes and I just kind of quickly scanned through them, like just, click through them to see, oh, that person. Okay. Yeah. Oh, I remember that. And that helped me. So after I read the first chapter of this episode 4, and saw that I was struggling with remembering who was who, I went through and I just looked through everything. And I'm like, okay, now I remember what's going on. And I think that made this one a lot more enjoyable for me, because then I was like up to date. You don't have to worry about that when you're releasing it as a novel, because I usually read only one novel at a time. So I don't get confused, because I've been reading this story, continuously. And if I do get to a part of a novel, like, wait, who's that person again? I can go back. But it's different when you have a break in between and you're reading other things that are similar. And so that helped me out a lot. Will he ever take my advice? Probably not. Does he need to? Probably not. Like I said, when it comes out as a full novel, it won't be a thing at all. And when episode 5 comes out, I am going to take a moment to once again scan through everything, to do my own previously on the Broken Kingdom, so that, because like I said, I'm really enjoying this as a reader. I'm really enjoying this book because I'm an Angus Donald fan. And not only that, I was reading Angus Donald before I started writing, before I decided to take on writing as a seriously, and writing Rampage on the River. So I was already a fan of his before I became a published author myself. So I'm enjoying it quite a bit, and I'm looking forward to that last episode. And I don't want to ruin it for myself by not knowing what the hell's going on, because it's been a month or so since I read episode 4. I wonder if if the episodes are still going to be available once it comes out, or if he's just going to take down all the episodes and now you just buy the book and then more episodes. I guess not, and I'm still debating on whether I want to stay committed to the whole thing. Like I'm committed to doing the first book. Maybe I will, but no promises. Anyway, that's that. And what is up next? I am reading Stephen A. McKay's The Heathen Horde. Let's pull that up. Let's see if we can. Let's do this. Okay. Stephen A. McKay, or Mackay, as he says it. I think he'll actually correct you if you say McKay. And sorry, Stephen, if you ever see this, it's because we have a McKay's used bookstore here in Nashville. In fact, they have several chains, and so I'm used to saying, "Hey, let's go to McKay's and see if they have any good books." So I see that word, and I'm so used to it being McKay and not Mackay, but enough. So I was really interested in this as well, because Stephen has been, through his entire career up until this book, an independent author like myself, who's publishing independently through Amazon, and had a lot of success doing so. So much so that Canelo, his publisher, reached out to him and said, "Hey, we like your stuff. We would like you to write a series for us." And so he said, "Okay." And this is the result. He's writing a trilogy about about Alfred the Great, and I wanted to read it and review it. First of all, just to help him out, because this is his shot, right? Like, and who knows what happens afterwards. I mean, I think Stephen will be fine if they just do this trilogy and then he just goes back to publishing his own stuff again. But I think that he'll probably want, if this goes well, he'll probably want to do more. So I want this to succeed for him. But it was like $5.99. That's the one thing, is when you are published through a commercial publisher, that jacks up the price because there's a lot more overhead. Canelo's got a whole staff and marketing and all that kind of stuff that they have to pay for. So, usually a book that's published through a publisher is going to be at least twice as much of what an independent book should be. And I will tell you right now, if you're an independent author, don't try to price your books to be the same as theirs. I mean, part of our advantage, they have an advantage of having, like a bigger footprint, all that. Our advantage as independents is that we can kind of come in underneath them and eat their lunch by offering books for a lot less money. And still, the author will still make more of a royalty per book than someone who's through a commercial publisher. So don't get greedy. I think my most expensive book is $4.99. And even there, I'm like, should I really be that high? And that will eventually come down when the next book comes out. But it was $5.99. So I was like, on my starving artist budget, I don't know if I can afford $5.99, or if I can justify $5.99. But then they dropped it. They did one of those 1 week specials where it went down to $1.99, and I was like, I'll read this for $1.99. And I know they were doing that because they're trying to get. I kind of buried the lead here. Book 2 is coming out July the 4th, and so I said, what, I'll read book 1 because they put it out for $1.99, and get the review out hopefully before book 2 comes out, or even if I'm a little late on it, it doesn't matter. I'm hoping what I do is, by reviewing it and sharing the review, it helps bring people into the funnel so that they want to buy book 1 and therefore buy book 2. See how I'm doing that? So that's what I'm reading right now. I will say this: I've read the first 3 chapters of this, and it's great. It really is a action-packed, well-written. It really puts you into the story right away. I'm in, man. I started this morning. I've already read like 10% of the book. I think I read 3 chapters. Let's see how much is in the. Once again, you can preview it for free. Yeah, I read chapter 2 on the sales page. And let's see here. I think I've gotten through it all. So that's basically what I'm reading now. And usually takes me about a month. Oh, wow. You can read chapter 4. You can read quite a bit of this in the preview. Yeah. Okay. So I think all the way through chapter 4, you can read for free. You can do that for most books. If you want to say, if you're not, it's the same thing as going to the bookstore back in the day, where you could pull a book off the shelf and you could thumb through it and read a little bit to see if it's something you like and then decide to buy it. Well, it's the same thing, but it's just digitally. So anyway, I'm reading that. My hope is to get it out before the 4th or soon after, so that I can help him out as he puts out book 2 of this trilogy. Because Stephen's a great guy. He's a great writer, and I'm rooting for him. Outside of that, it's, if you notice, I'm back home. So my father is in hospice, and my sister and I have been taking care of him. Her husband came down over the weekend, and so we decided that'd be a good time for me to sneak back to Nashville so I could spend a couple days with Laura, which I have. Ben, mow my lawn, take care of some business here, and I'm going back to Florida Monday. And I don't know how long I'm going to be there. My father needs constant help. He can't be left alone at all. There's got to be someone in the house at all times. And not only is it expensive to hire someone else, but we just don't trust anybody else. And plus, I love my father, and so it's good to be with him and all that. So it's kind of put me in a strange position because I do side work to kind of stay afloat, to pay some bills. Um, I've had to put that aside. Now I've worked something out where I'm going to be okay financially during that time. So what it has done for me is that although I need to be there in the house with him, especially in the morning, like when he first wakes up, I got to make sure he gets his pills. I have to help him go to the bathroom. I got to help him clean up. I got to, prepare food for him, all that kind of stuff. But once he settles in the mid morning, there's not a whole lot to do. He sleeps most of the day. Um, while I was there, I was getting up at like 5 and going out onto the lanai. This is in Florida. It's very warm. It's really the only time of day where you can sit outside comfortably is early in the morning and get my writing done. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that this is because I can't really do anything other than I can't leave the house. Can't do anything other than attend to my father. It has given me the ability to focus more on my writing, and I'm trying to ramp up like my production. I take I have spreadsheets that keep track of all the books I've written, how many words I've written per month. Um, I have quotas. I mean, I try to do a bare minimum of like 500 words a day, 5 days a week, 2,500 words on the week, um, and at least this is minimum. It's not like you get 500 words and you quit, but the minimum, and 8,000 a month. Knowing that I have months where I write 14,000 words. And I've had months where I've been really bad, where I only got like 3,000 in. It's just a way to kind of track myself to keep because I'm my own boss, right? And I don't because I'm an independent. I don't have an editor or a publisher kind of banging down on me to hey, where's our manuscript? So I have to do it myself. And I will say I'm pretty proud of it. I've done pretty well. I think the most I've been between two books is I think about 16 months, maybe a year and a half, which is not bad. My goal is to I think the extremes is you should probably not put out books faster than every 6 months. I think you're overwhelming your readers if you do any faster than that. Are there people who do faster than that that are successful? Sure. I just think as a reader, I would feel like overwhelmed if I had like an author that was reading everything they wrote and they were constantly just putting out a new book, and I never had it, and I can't get caught up. So putting out a book at the quickest every 6 months, I think you got to and no more than 4 years in between. If you go more than 4 years in between, you've quit writing and you've come back to it. I mean, there's no excuse to go more than 4 years. But those are the extremes. 6 months to 4 years, you should have a book out. I think the Goldilocks within those extreme parameters are, I think, the Goldilocks numbers, and that is between 9 months and 2 years. And so that's kind of my goal is to put out books either at least 9 months or and no more than 2 years in between. And so far I've been doing that. I've also wanted to get a book out every calendar year. I did not get a book out in 2023, and the reason, the big excuse, the reason for that is that Mexico, My Love came out in at the end of November of 2022. So it came out the day after Thanksgiving. So basically, there was only a month left of that year, and then the Prussian Prince came out February of 2024. So I think it was 15 months. It was a year and 3 months between which is within my wheelhouse. It's under 2 years. It's just a little over a year. But because of that and where those dates fell, there was nothing for the year of 2023. I now that I'm getting now because that book came out in February, it is reset things so that I should be able to get a book out every calendar year for the next few books as those release dates get further and further into the year. And then there'll probably be another lag year where there's a whole calendar year that goes by in between books. But we'll see. I'm getting more efficient with my writing. And especially now, like I said, the last 10 days I spent at my dad's house, I have been boosting myself. I'm not setting like artificial numbers. I mean, I'm still sticking to those minimals, but I'm writing more than just 5 days a week. I'm just writing every single day because why not? And unless there's something going on, like when I drove back, it's a 14-hour drive, so I didn't write that day. Editing the chapters as I go, I like to do that because it helps me. First of all, it's less work when I'm done. If I write a chapter, I finish the chapter, then I go back and I do my initial rounds of editing for that, because it keeps me focused of what I'm doing, as opposed to some authors will say, I think most authors will write their entire first draft and they'll do it rather quickly. And then without looking back at all. And then once it's done, they'll go back and start fixing things. And I like to keep track of what I'm doing so that I'm more focused on what I'm writing, if that makes any sense. And constantly going back and looking at the structure and looking at where things lie. In fact, I have a scene that I wrote just recently where I'm thinking about moving into another part of the book, maybe moving a little earlier. We'll see. But all that to say is that I'm using the time I'm spending tending to my father while he's in hospice to get more efficient and to spend more time writing, as if that is my completely full-time job, which I can't merit. I make money. I do make money from my royalties, and with every book, my monthly average and royalty goes up and up and up. And I'm quite confident that eventually, that's all I'll have to do is write and promote. But anyway, I guess this gives me a way to experiment to see what would it be like if all I had to do was write. So, and the more books you have out, the more you make in royalties because you have more products to sell. And especially if you're writing in a series in which people want to read the next one. So that's what we're hoping to happen with the French Fiasco. Now, the French Fiasco. So I am in chapter 12 now. And we've had the real big inciting incident happen. So it's a very exciting time for me. There's some old characters from previous books that have come back into this one. And right now the target is to get that book out early next year. So we'll see what we can do. As far as the live streams, and I'm going to wrap this one up here pretty soon. And, I had 2 review streams because I read Ethan Bale's novel, and that was a full novel. And I finished that last week and I did a review. Then I read, and it usually takes me about a month to read a novel. I'm a slow reader. And I'm not a slow reader when I read. It's just that I can only dedicate so much time to reading. So it takes me longer to get through an entire novel. That's my excuse. Oh, look at that! Can't wait to read it. Thank you, Lloyd. Thank you very much. So Angus Donald's episode's only 20,000 words, so it only took me a couple days to read that. I think it took me like 3 days, 3 or 4 days, to finish that. Uh, Stephen A. McKay's book is a lot bigger, and so that'll probably take me. Like I said, I'm hoping to get that done before the 4th of July. So that means, what am I going to do on the next stream? I'm not quite certain, but one of the things I have thought about is there's a few people that I coach out there, and one of them is Phil Lee, or Philip Lee, and he writes like Civil War stuff, and he asked me, because he likes how I do my marketing, and he asked me, what do I what do I do? Hang on, let me take that down. What do I? He goes, how do, if I get a good review, how do I use that for my promotion without looking pushy, or he says, I really like how you do it. And so I wrote back to him, and I explained all the steps that I do and where I share it and all that. So maybe the next time I get a review, especially a good one, I'm thinking about, and this might not be the next stream, but of doing some screen sharing and really just like walking through, like, this is what I do. This is how I, I shrink the window so that to make the review more square-like, and then I do a screen grab of it, and then I pull it into Canva, and then I add the cover of my book to it, and maybe some of my little branding things. Like, I like to do the baby Yoda and the duck with the pickle hulb and the Teletubby star. I don't know, son. And then how I share it on all these different things, and making sure that the link, every time you share something like that, make sure the link is there. Because if you're saying, hey, I got this great review of my book, don't make it easy for them. So if someone reads that and says, oh, look, Lloyd's getting great reviews on his books, I should go look that up sometime, and they never do, because they don't. But if you give them a link, you say, hey, look at this great review, and then there's a link in there, they can, right there and then, they can click on it and say, I'm going to buy that. So I do that. Sometimes I got a email list. By the way, join my email list. It's in the description below. I'll create an email for it. I might even do a blog post. There's all sorts of things that you can do when somebody gives you something to work with, like a good review. So there's one review that I've known about for a while that's on. It's a great review. It's from another author. I think I've already done this with that, though. But if not next week, sometime soon, if I get a good review, I might do a live where I'm physically showing you, like, click by click, how I take that review and turn it into a marketing asset. Okay, so I'm gonna leave it there. Thank you for tuning in. I love you guys, and remember, just like I'm doing, I'm not a hypocrite, right? I am no hypocrite. I read other people's novels and I give them reviews, as does my friend here, Lloyd, because we authors live and die by our reviews and our stars. Because remember, we're all made of stars. So you have an author out there that you like, you want to support, you love, you want to see more from them. The best thing you can do, 1, buy their book. 2, give them as many stars. I'm going to ask for 5. Some of the social media is kind of weird about you asking for 5 stars, because they think you're, what are they, review bombing or something like that, review brigading. So you got to be really careful about how you ask. So please give your favorite authors as many stars as you think they deserve, and I hope you think they deserve 5. And then one step further is write a review. Now, if you see my reviews are a little extensive. Well, it's because I am a writer. Not only am I a novelist, but I'm a trained copywriter. I spent years writing commercials in Detroit, 30-second television commercials. I've spent years writing articles and news stories for television. So I know how to do those things. You don't have to do all that. You could just find a book, Angus Donald's episode 4. Great episode. Can't wait for the next one. That's it. Give them 5 stars. Say great episode. Can't wait for the next one. Period. Submit. Copy and paste it so that you put it in Amazon and you put it on Goodreads. You could. I think the Goodreads version, like, you don't have to do what I do, which I create a separate blog post, but the Goodreads will allow you to share your review of someone else's book without having to go through all that. So if you review it on Goodreads, you can also share that review to all your social media. And that's how you help your favorite authors, and you keep them writing and keep the entertainment. And the more we write and the more we read, the smarter we become as a society. So look at here we go. Here's Lloyd. Lloyd is giving this broadcast 5 stars. 5 stars. By the way, Lloyd is Lloyd Elmore Jr. You can see his name right there. Look him up on Amazon. He writes great stuff. If you like Stephen King and the Twilight Zone, he's got some great short story books. He's got some novels, Malinville, I think 1 and 2, maybe 3 is out. I'm not quite sure. But then there's also Malcolm's Bridge, which looks very interesting. So anyway, I love you guys. Keep reading, keep writing, and I hope to see you guys probably a week from Sunday.